Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the June 16th regular board meeting of the Northwestern Lehigh School District. Please join me in opening exercises.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated and please call the roll.
John Cassiano, Willard Delaker,
Here.
Joseph Fatzinger,
Here.
Todd Hernandez,
Here.
Todd Leiser,
Here.
Rosemary Lister, here. Alan Rex,
Here.
Rachel Scheffler, here. James Warfel.
Here. Thank you. And at this point, we have an agenda to approve that's on our devices, and I don't believe there are any adds or changes.
The only change was the proclamation that you see under recognition. We did just receive yesterday.
Okay. Okay, with that, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda in front of you.
Motion approved.
Motion by Mr. Rex,
Second.
second by Mrs. Scheffler. Comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We have an agenda. Welcome again to everyone joining us this evening for our regular board meeting. At this time, we offer courtesy of the floor to anyone who would like to address the board about an issue that is on the agenda this evening. And if you would like to comment, please raise your hand on your Zoom device and begin with your name and address.
Dr. Hyman.
Thank you very much. My name's Kimberly Hyman, 8380 Moore Lane, Fogelsville. As you know, I'm the board president for Circle of Seasons Charter Schools Board of Trustees. And more importantly, my children are students at Circle of Seasons. I'm here tonight to thank Northwestern Lehigh School District and its administration for the renewal recommendation that was discussed at the most recent workshop board meeting. It is gratifying for our community to know that our charter schools' efforts, that of our dedicated board made up of mostly parents who attend our school, our tireless administration, our incredible teaching staff, our families, and our amazing students, that all that hard work for this recognition. And we are thrilled to be able to offer the privilege of choice to so many families. As you know, our school draws from 27 school districts here in central Pennsylvania. Families from across the country, I kid you not, reach out to our school and express their interests to move here to your school district to attend our school due to their interest in public Waldorf curriculum. We actually have a family from California on our wait list right now looking to move to your school district. Thus, we are more than a friendly neighborhood charter school. Our charter school promotes Pennsylvania, this region, and most importantly, your school district as a great place to live and work. Circle of Seasons no longer is a fledgling organization and should not be judged as such. We have become a national leader in public Waldorf, and we are no longer content with any narrative that says Circle of Seasons has, quote, come a long way. We refuse to be defined by the first 3 years of our operation. This would be similar to me saying I have a doctorate from Stanford and I've worked as a professor for over a decade. I wouldn't be expecting my colleagues to judge me on my performance as a freshman in undergrad. We hope that you will see Circle of Seasons by its appearance as it is now, not how it was 7 years ago or even 5 years ago when we came up for charter renewal last time. We take our role as an independent charter school very seriously. At Circle of Seasons, we know that we improve pupil learning, we increase learning opportunities for all pupils, and we provide parents and children with expanded school choice. Our teachers are implementing a different and innovative teaching method, and we hold ourselves accountable, and we are accountable to all of our stakeholders. But chief among our stakeholders are our parents, whom have been our greatest advocates and whose strong voices brought us renewal in 2016, and whose voices will advocate for our renewal once again. As you consider our renewal, We continue to hope that both of our organizations, your district and our charter school, can act as partners, not opponents, to achieve a common goal. That is what is best for our students. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Hyman.
No one else, Mr. Gallagher.
Thank you, and thank you for being with us this evening, Dr. Hyman. And at this point, we'll move into approval of the minutes. We have the minutes on our devices from the board meeting on 5/12 and the workshop on June 2nd.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Motion by Dr. Warfel,
Second.
second by Mrs. Lister. Comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. At this time, we have some very important and interesting recognitions and presentations to make this evening, and I would ask Mrs. Hallman if she would please lead us through this part of the agenda.
Certainly. We're really excited to invite a few folks to our meeting tonight. Dr. Pelosi is with us, but I would like Dr. Pelosi actually to see the first agenda item. Emma Burton is I say senior, but she's not a senior now. She's an alumni. She was a senior at the high school, and she did a presentation and was working on a project to be able to try to capture this year and what this year was about and what it looked like from a student perspective. I know she worked with a number of our staff, and she did put together a video, which I have Stacy has queued up, and I would like you to just take a couple minutes to take a look at what the movie she calls Tiger Strong. Need the sound.
What the future would hold. As the 2019-2020 school year came to an end, no one quite knew what the future would hold. But Northwestern Lehigh's administration and school board knew that COVID-19 couldn't stop their students from getting the education they deserve. The meetings began, over Zoom of course, and decisions were made. For the 2020-2021 school year, the students would return to school through a hybrid system. When August rolled around, the school board had invested in keeping our students, teachers, and staff safe by implementing particle filters in every classroom and other preventative measures. Outside of the classroom, the district's Grab and Go program continued strongly, supporting those in our community with meals in line with the adjusted schedule. As the year started, it was up to the students, faculty, and staff to band together to fight the virus. Masks were worn, students and teachers were distanced, and when possible, events were performed virtually. The hardworking custodial staff worked tirelessly to ensure the buildings were clean and safe for all those in them. Throughout the district, school activities and sports continued, giving students, coaches, advisors, and teachers a chance to express themselves and engage in important school activities, even during the pandemic. Homecoming, district and league games, concerts, and even drama performances occurred, and together, students and staff made the world feel a little bit brighter. As the school year winds down, we hope that next year will be a bit more normal, without the threat of a global pandemic looming over our heads. But there is no denying that the Northwestern Lehigh community has come together to make the 2020-2021 school year as fulfilling as possible for everyone. We are Tiger Strong.
That's great.
Right, we thought it was really good. I mean, it's short and sweet. I know Dr. Sustomic worked with Emma at the high school, and Emma couldn't join us tonight, but I hope at some point she'll be able to pop in here, even if it's virtually. She is going away to school to be able to, be recognized for her efforts to put together and try to really, I don't know what it was, 2 minutes, in about 2 minutes, try to capture kind of the year and from a positive perspective. I mean, we'll certainly talk a little bit about that tonight in Dr. Pelosi's recognition and some of my comments about the year, but we thought it was a good capture to kind of capstone the year. Without further ado, I would like to, Dr. Sosnowick, I believe, will move Dr. Pelosi over. Some of you have heard me mention Dr. Pelosi's name, or Dr. Sosnowick mention Dr. Pelosi's name. Dr. Pelosi is joining us tonight via Zoom. Dr. Pelosi was our chief medical advisor from LVHN. From March to the time he retired, he's enjoying retirement now. But we wanted to bring him here this evening so you could hear a little bit about him, as well as, our sincere appreciation for what it was that he did. We do education, and we kind of work together in terms of the medical and the education part, but we called him often about advice or situations as we ran into, what do we do about this? He certainly, as I've told you many times, met with our faculty and our staff very early at the beginning to kind of discuss some of the myths about the virus, and tried always to stay up on the most recent medical advice on a really difficult topic that continued to evolve in his world, and certainly as he advised us. So Dr. Pelosi, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, and just my compliments to your student Emma. What a great film, and it just illustrates the resiliency of the kids and the staff, and what a great job they did in a very challenging time. So I was really very happy to see that.
If I could just take a moment, we do have a formal recognition, and I know we'll see you in person tomorrow. We have some things for our students. I'll let Dr. Sisnovic, when I'm done, explain that. But we have a formal recognition, which is sort of something we do often for our retirees. And so we decided it would be best to do one for you as well. So the formal recognition reads, as presented to Dr. Cameron Pelosi, in grateful recognition of his service during the COVID-19 pandemic to the Northwestern Lehigh School District. Whereas the Northwestern Lehigh School District owes a substantial debt of gratitude to Dr. Pelosi for his distinguished service as the district's chief medical advisor during the global COVID-19 pandemic between March 2020 and June 2021. And whereas Dr. Pelosi's guidance and knowledge, expertise provided the district with clear understanding and direction during a very uncertain time. And whereas Dr. Pelosi's demeanor, compassion, and commitment provided reassurance and support in the design and execution of the district's health and safety plan. Whereas Dr. Pelosi understood the meaning of school community and supported our students, our employees, and our families of the Northwestern Lehigh School District. And whereas Dr. Pelosi now and will always be considered a Tiger, I know that you're not a Tiger, you will be an honorary Tiger and be part of our school family. Therefore, be it resolved that the School Board of Directors of the Northwestern Lehigh School District tenders Dr. Pelosi the sincere thanks and appreciation of the board for his commitment and dedication on behalf of our schools and the Northwestern family. And be it further resolved that the resolution be made a permanent part of the record of this public meeting, June 16th, 2021. And so we have a few things from our students that are a little more sentimental. I'll let Dr. Sisnovic explain those, and then I will certainly open it to you or any of the board members who wish to speak.
Thanks so much, Mrs. Holman. Words can't really describe all that Dr. Pelosi has provided us throughout the year. He was that sounding board in a very challenging year of constant change. He was that steadfast reassurance we needed to know that we were making the right decisions for our school community. So our words really can't describe or put into great context and detail like what he's meant to us. And so we felt it important to recognize him tonight. Our principals also felt it was important too. And as we look who makes the best kid art, absolutely, it's always going to be our elementary kids. So what's on your screen is from Mrs. Sacco and Mrs. Burlett's building, which is Weisenberg Elementary. Each one of those little dots is a fingerprint from one of our students. And so it's beautifully framed, and we will present that to you tomorrow. Can you bring that up? Mrs. Smoyer and Mrs. Pooley from our Northwestern Elementary School put this wonderful collage that is also framed, thanking you, showing you a little bit of our Tiger pride and some of the student artwork that they assembled for this specific purpose. So, Dr. Pelosi, thank you so much. I really want you to know you were always there for us, and if we could be there for you, we're here, and we're just a phone call away, an email. Thank you.
I am truly humbled, and I'm really honored by the artwork and the efforts of the students and the faculty. It's been my privilege, as you know, I've said this, Jennifer and Troy, to work with you. And you always had great questions that were very challenging. And I know our challenges have not ended entirely, but I think we've had a really good start to overcoming those bad days. And I'm just really humbled by this. And I'd like to express my appreciation to you and the whole team there and to the students. So please pass along my thanks and how appreciated their efforts truly were. Thank you.
Any comments from the board?
Dr. Pelosi, this is Bill Deliker, Board President. Thank you for joining us this evening. And I have to tell you that your name is not strange around here in Northwestern Lehigh, because every discussion we ever had with the board about the direction we were going to take and the planning that we put together all benefited from your expertise in helping us to do that. Every time I came to talk to Jennifer and Troy about the direction we were heading, your name was mentioned as giving us that confidence that we needed in our decisions from using your expertise and offering it to us with your guidance. It was very important to us. And I just want you to know, too, from a board perspective, that you are the kind of people in our community that makes this community as successful and as loving a community as we have here in Northwestern Lehigh, and one that we're all proud to call home. And we want to thank you for all the things that you brought to us voluntarily and with great benefit to the direction that we took and the safety and health that we brought to our kids here at our school. Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you once again. And I should mention that I'm also honored to be an honorary Tiger. So thank you for that.
Well, and all kidding aside, I don't think when whoever at Lehigh Valley Health Network approached Dr. Pelosi and said, would you like to be the school liaison for LVHN for all of our LVHN districts, he had any idea what he had agreed to when he did that. I know that we asked our share of challenging questions and challenging circumstances, which he handled, certainly the recognition said with compassion and calmness and grace, but every single communication about if we were asking a question or when he met with some of our staff, trying to talk about the myths and the things that are associated with COVID that are true and how we can best protect ourselves. I don't know that he had any idea how often he was going to get a call or an email from Jen and Troy and whoever else are our counterparts in the other districts. But he was always there. He was always very prompt. He always answered, and he always gave us very good, solid advice. So we appreciate it very much. And so on behalf of all of our students and families, thank you.
Thank you once again. I appreciate it.
Okay, Dr. Pelosi, we will see you tomorrow.
I will see you then. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have one final recognition, which is actually out of order on your, this just is the add to the agenda. It is also about COVID-19. We were sent a recognition from County of Lehigh Office of Commissioners, and I will certainly read it and we can put it into the record. It is the County of Lehigh Board of Commissioners proclamation honoring Lehigh County, all of the Lehigh County School District classes of 2021 high school graduates. Whereas the 2021 academic school year was disrupted by a global coronavirus pandemic, and whereas the graduating class of Northwestern Lehigh High School worked vigorously towards the pursuit of their education, despite the unprecedented circumstances that were thrust upon them, and whereas our students as a whole rose to the challenges presented to them in the era of COVID-19 that resulted in a unique and ever-changing learning environment, and whereas the graduating class of 2021 had to endure the constant changes brought on by the pandemic and sacrifice many memorable experiences that come with senior year, and whereas these seniors should be commended for their determination in continuing their studies through these challenging times, whereas these seniors find their way towards commencement, we offer heartfelt congratulations and best wishes on this very important milestone in their lives. Whereas the County of Lehigh praises the faculty and administration of the Northwestern Lehigh School District for successfully guiding their students through the trials and tribulations of the past year, and where therefore the Lehigh County Board of Commissioners and the Lehigh County Executive hereby proclaim the month of June 2021 High School Senior Recognition Month in all Lehigh County, and all Lehigh County residents are encouraged to congratulate our Northwestern Lehigh High School class of 2021. I do believe this was presented on behalf of the senior class, and I believe Bailey Scheffler went down and received it on behalf of the senior class, and so it was delivered via Mrs. Jadish yesterday. So we wanted to make sure you saw that as well, since it obviously is certainly a recognition of the senior class, but is also of the board and administration. And we're all very glad to put the year behind us, I think. That is all of the recognitions for tonight.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Holman, very nice. And I really don't have a president's report this evening. I would just like to, again, thank Dr. Pelosi for all of the things that he has done for us. And that example of his help is just one of dozens of positives that came out of our COVID experience this year that helped us move along and get through this difficult year. And thank you to all. A little bit about our commencement. That was a wonderful night. Wonderful end to our seniors year. I think it was the first time they were all together in one spot this entire year, but it was great. The weather was perfect. Got to tell you that when it started thundering at the end of the program there, Jason was up in the booth watching the radar, texting down to Jennifer sitting on the stage here, don't worry about it. So we're south of Kempton, don't worry about it. And it gave us a little bit of comfort to keep moving on. But what a beautiful night that was. And sincere thanks to all the staff who made it happen, the teachers who helped, and Jimmy and Art and his crew that put it all together. It was wonderful being back in the stadium here at Corn Cob High. Thank you. Mrs. Holman, Superintendent's report.
I do. Sort of as a cap to the year and things that you just heard. You know, we were in an interview yesterday, and one of our interviewees said, you know, what are the good things out of this year? And so that's sort of the message of what I want to talk about. As the school year draws to a close, it's an important time to stop and reflect, and it's also an important time to take a deep breath. Think about what we've accomplished this year. Over a year ago, schools were closed as a result of a worldwide pandemic. We were all sent scrambling. Institutions across the globe switched to virtual teaching from home, with everyone trying to adapt to new norms, quarantines, teaching and learning in a new way, and we began grab-and-go meals, trying to anticipate what would happen after what was an initial 2-week closure. As we now know, that 2-week closure turned into a month, and then the reality is that is how we ended the 1920 school year. As we prepared for this year, it seemed unfathomable that we would be able to plan anything with what we knew was previously normal. Although schools were reopening, everything was different. Everything was different for our parents, their home and work life, our teachers, our students, our staff, and our administrators. Everything was different. This year, each of us adapted to things we never dreamed we would do, and there are days that it was not pretty. I think I said to one of our teachers the other day, but we did it. Our students were absolute rock stars. They did whatever was expected of them to come to school or to participate in an activity. They rolled with whatever was asked of them this year, just to be in school or just to participate in that sport or activity. I should have not expected anything less, but our biggest worry as we approached school in August was how we were going to get all the 5-year-olds to wear a mask properly. To our parents who partnered with us like never before, we did need the partnership this year to make hybrid and our asynchronous Wednesdays work when you were helping to guide your children along from home while you were trying to work, or logging into Zoom while at the same time you were trying to work or just got home from a long shift. You've helped us keep school safe by keeping small groups of students with the appropriate distance in school, and we know that wasn't easy, and we thank you for the partnership. We could not have done that without you. To our support staff, the hero's effort of our custodians trying to keep our buildings clean, to go into rooms after someone with COVID might have been present, to make it safer for others to enter. We know it wasn't what you signed up for, but we're very appreciative of the diligence and without complaint that you have taken to keep all of us healthy. To our bus drivers who picked up students each day knowing there were times that they couldn't stay 6 feet apart on the bus and deliver them to school and to home each day safely had a whole new meaning. Secretaries and instructional assistants who kept the plan in motion, supporting our students with changing regulation, more technology and Zoom invites than any of them hope to ever see again. We do thank you. Our food service staff who prepared meals for our families and came to work to do so when everyone else was quarantined and continue to do so throughout this year. To our teachers who reinvented lessons to teach from home, to teach online, to teach half of the students here and half of them at home, and all of them here all simultaneously, you adjusted to an entirely new education landscape, one marked by uncertainty, frustration, and seemingly endless hours on Zoom. You've engaged students academically while providing them some sense of normalcy amid a very chaotic time. For your endless efforts this year, we thank you. We could not have done it without you, and our students thank you. To our administrators who have led this year through very uncertain times, advice, as we talked about earlier, seemed to change by the minute. You have made decisions about scheduling, logistics, measured spaces, and then measure them again. You worked diligently on interpreting health advice, even when the advice that we received was conflicting, making the best decisions for students. And to the board, I mean, you'll hear a little more about this tonight. I'm not really sure what next year brings, but thank you for trusting us to make the best decisions. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Mrs. Holman. Great summary. Any comments or questions? Superintendent's report. Yeah,
I don't know what next year brings. It has to be more normal than this year was.
we all hoping that.
We'll talk a little bit about that on the agenda.
Well, thank you. That will take us into personnel. Mrs. Matika, are you with us this evening?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. We have 42 items on the personnel agenda for your approval tonight. Even though it's less than a week that our students and our 10-month staff began their break, our principals have been working hard to begin filling positions for next school year. So many of the items you'll see tonight include appointments as we start our work for the start of next school year. We have 3 new teachers with us this evening, and I will ask Mr. DeVico to begin the introductions of Ashley Albert. You're on mute, I think. Phil.
Good evening. There you go. I think I would have figured that out by since last March. So I got to unmute myself. Is Ashley on tonight?
She is.
Okay, great. So I'd like to introduce Ashley Albert. We had a recent retirement this year in our 8th grade team. So we were on the search to fill big shoes on that 8th grade team. And we came and found Ashley Albert, who went to Rowan University and received a bachelor's in journalism, and then found a new passion in teaching and went to Lehigh University to receive her master's in special education. While she was receiving her master's, she worked at Lehigh University Centennial School. And then after she had graduated from Lehigh University, she received a job offer from Southern Lehigh High School, where she has been teaching special education until the end of this year. So we're very excited to add her to our team. She's been in the building already trying to get her bearing with joining a new team and a new school. And we're looking forward to the impact that she's going to have on our students here at Northwestern Lehigh School District. Thank you.
Ashley, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. Thank you so much. I've always been drawn to the Northwestern School District. I just think it's community feeling combined with like your commitment to consistently educating the whole child is really unmatched in this area. I actually briefly worked with the district back in 2018 as a one-to-one instructional assistant, and I've always had my eye on Northwestern as a potential place to spend my whole career. So like Mr. DeVico said, after another year in another district, I really jumped on this opportunity, and I'm super excited and grateful to be a part of the Tiger team. So thank you.
Welcome, Ashley. We'll see you in August. And I will ask Mrs. Yadish to introduce the next 2 teachers. They would be Lauren Alsenbeimer and Brian Quinlan.
Good evening and thank you. I am also very happy to introduce our two newest teachers to the high school. We are fortunate in that we know both of these teachers and they are actually returning to us from other positions after previously having been with us in the past as well. Lauren Elsenbaumer will be the newest member of our World Languages Department, teaching Spanish for our recent retirement at the high school. Lauren rejoins us after going to another local school district for the last 5 years. I've been fortunate enough to have worked with Lauren both in my previous job and at a job in the past. And we are very excited to have her join us back at Northwestern. She will be teaching some upper level Spanish classes as she had the opportunity to do so in her current position. And both our committee, her department, and all of us at the high school are very happy to welcome her back. So welcome, Lauren.
Thank you so very much. I am beyond excited to rejoin the Tiger family. I don't think I've ever been this excited for school to begin. And as I said to Mrs. Yadish in my interview, I certainly left my heart at Northwestern. So I truly cannot wait to again work with such wonderful individuals and be a part of this awesome community. So thank you so much for this opportunity to be part of the family again.
Welcome back, Lauren.
Thank you.
Mrs. Yadish, is Brian on?
I'm not sure if he's on.
I'm here.
Okay, good. I am also very happy to welcome Brian Quinlan back to Northwestern Lehigh High School. Brian also served with us for a short time at the high school as a teacher. He was a substitute for us, not only at the high school, but also at the middle school over the last several years. Brian was fortunate enough to get a position at St. Joseph the Workers School, teaching social studies to 8th graders, I believe it was, for the last several years. While he was with us in the past, Brian also served as an assistant baseball coach. And in welcoming Brian back to the Northwestern Lehigh School District, Brian is also an alum. So he's excited to be with us for a different reason, but we're very happy to have him back. He will be joining our special education department. And we are very excited to have him back with us at the high school. The committee was overwhelmingly supportive of bringing him on board. So Brian, welcome back to the high school.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm really, really excited. Looking forward to this upcoming school year. I just really appreciate the opportunity. It's really nice to be rejoining the Northwestern family and community. I'm just really excited and looking forward to the upcoming school year.
Welcome back, Brian.
Thank you.
We have one more professional to introduce to you tonight, not a teacher, but a certified school nurse. Her name is Arissa Green, and she comes to us with experience from Lehigh Valley Hospital. And I will ask Mrs. Edmonds to introduce her.
Hi, is Arissa on? I didn't see her.
Yes, Andrew, she's on.
Okay, great. So Arissa is a Palmerton High School graduate. Before pursuing nursing, she actually wanted to be a teacher. She attended Penn State University for 2 years and then graduated from DeSales University with a Bachelor's of Science in Nursing. She realized quickly after shadowing a school nurse that it was something she felt really passionate about. And from there, she began her school nurse certification program at Eastern University in 2018. She's recently graduated from there. She has also substituted for our school nurses as well as for Palmerton School District. She's currently coming to us from Lehigh Valley Hospital, where she works as a full-time labor and delivery nurse for the past 3 years. We are very excited to welcome Arissa to the Tiger community, and we can't wait for her to get started for the new year.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited for this opportunity to work for Northwestern. Becoming a school nurse has been a dream of mine, so I'm very excited for the opportunity to work with the great team at Northwestern Lehigh School District.
Welcome, Arissa. Thank you. The items highlighted in yellow have been added since the agenda was posted on Friday. Including some interviews and job offers that were made within the last 24 hours. The only other thing I'd like to call your attention to, which is bittersweet, which is the resignation of our colleague, Leslie Frisbee, and we wish her much success. I ask for your approval on these items this evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Matika, and thank you all of Ashley and Lauren and Brian and Arissa for being with us tonight. It's always really nice for us to have a face to put place with the name on these new positions because we're not in the school building with you after you start, but thank you for joining us. As was said, we have bittersweet action to take this evening. Sweet to welcome all the newcomers and bitter to say goodbye to a lot of people who have put in a lot of time here at Northwestern Lehigh, including Mrs. Frisbee. So then I would ask for a motion to approve the personnel action this evening.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mrs. Scheffler,
Second.
second by Mr. Hernandez. Any comments or questions?
I have a comment, Mr. Delaker. I hope this is appropriate, but in my experience, when we have a resignation of really significant importance, with someone of the level of competence and contribution that Leslie Frisbee has made in the school district, that's appropriate to note that the resignation has been accepted with regret. In fact, I would like to suggest that the board accept her resignation with sincere, not severe, sounds harsh, with sincere regret. This is a really huge loss to the school district. I wish her well, but I wish it was. So is that appropriate to do? To make that qualification?
Yes, with regret, yes.
It's better than two other board members who wanted to decline the resignation.
About
5 minutes ago.
Can I have that choice?
I don't know. Leslie's on. She could certainly tell you that, but I texted her and said there's a couple board members who want to deny your resignation. We will recognize Leslie at the board meeting also, or the workshop meeting will be her last. Oh, sorry. Thank you. We will recognize Leslie at the workshop meeting in August. That will be her last meeting, if I'm calculating correctly.
But the minutes for tonight can show that we accepted the recommendation.
Effective August 13th, yeah. Well, thank you for that. And it is with regret, but it's a really a tremendous opportunity for Leslie to advance her career. And it's always nice to work in your home district, which you will be doing, working for Parkland, where her kids are students in that district. It's going to be a great loss for us, but we wish her well and thank you for all of you done for us. And with regret, we'll approve her resignation. So we have a motion, a second. Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
I abstain from item C17.
C17, abstain from Mr. Rex. Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Now, the next item under personnel are the annual extracurricular appointments. Is that Mrs. Matika or Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes, thank you. Also, in preparation for the start of the 21-22 school year are the appointments for all of the extracurricular athletic positions and department chairs. I believe all of the positions are filled except for 13. As those positions fill, I'll bring them forward in August and September. So I do ask for your approval on these items tonight, as Mr. Zimmerman reviewed all of the programs at an earlier board meeting.
Okay, with that, I would ask for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Rex. Second by Mr. Lister, Mrs. Lister. And are there any comments or questions about the recommended advisors and coaches? I see in front of us. Seeing none, put it in the good hands with Zimmy and Mrs. Matika. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried.
Thank you. Thank you.
Under curriculum and building issues, there is an item I don't think we discussed in workshop, two items here, the COVID grant related funding 3.01 and ESSER 3, that's just information
well, 3.01 and 2 are tied together, but no, they're both new as well as 3.05.
Would you take us through that,
Sure.
please?
3.01 and 3.02 are related. I will actually intro 3.01, but Mrs. Frisbee will do the majority of the presenting. So if you recall in a prior meeting, we talked a little bit about one of the uses of the COVID-related money and some of the things that we've spent the COVID-related money on thus far. One of them was summer programs that we had begun offering. We wanted to give you a comprehensive presentation of the money we've spent thus far and the categories in which we've spent it, but then also our intended use. And then 3.02 is just your approval for us to apply for the grant funding, because all of those funds, whether it's a CR 2 or 3, you have already approved us to apply for 2. But we do need now approval to apply for ESSER 3. So we wanted to give you an idea of the areas in which we intend to use the money and some of the money that has been through a prior funding source already spent. A couple things I'll add certainly, but I will turn it over to Mrs. Frisbee for the presentation and then subsequently the approval.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. I will present most of this information, but certainly this has been a team effort. We have spent lots of time understanding the grant funds, trying to maximize, looking at our COVID-related grant expenditures, and really just trying to understand the different requirements as we move through this multi-year period for these grant funds. Stacey, if you could advance to the next slide, please. So this is just a recap. The board has seen this before. Back since March of 2020, the district has been tracking COVID-related expenditures, and we've received either through reimbursement or different grant funding, the reimbursement and grant funds that you see here listed in that 2021 column. You'll see we have received about $459,000 of grants, funds, and reimbursement funds for 2021. And then the primary focus of tonight is really to give you information on the ESSER 2 and the ESSER 3 funding, which we will see moving into the 21-22 school year as well as 22-23. Just as a reminder, the 21-22 final budget this evening does include the monies for both ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. So this is a bar chart that we've updated through April of 2021. Really taking a look and saying, reflecting on the last, call it 13 months, where did we experience those COVID-related expenditures and significant areas, obviously, where the HVAC bipolar ionization units, about $332,000, about 35% of the total, $900,000 of total fund of related expenditures. Additionally, you can see the next item is in supplies, so PPE equipment, cleaning, sanitation, whether it be machines or gloves and hand sanitizer, and really all of those operational supplies that really allowed us to open safely and efficiently and keep our buildings clean. And then you can see on the next item was the technology. We spent a little less than $100,000 on technology related to needs for COVID-related expenditures, and then as well as online learning associated with both online learning for our students and our programs, but also our digital academy and the service providers we utilize for our students. These numbers do not reflect any cyber charter enrollment for students who left Northwestern Lehigh. These are really reflective of costs associated with in-house operational costs with our programming. And so you can see approximately 50% of the COVID-related expenditures were reimbursed through either those fundings or those reimbursement programs that we talked about on the prior slide. And as we move into the next school year and beyond, we certainly are hopeful to continue to maximize and try to find creative ways to offset some of those costs associated with COVID. Next slide, please. So the focus tonight is really on these elementary and secondary school emergency relief funds, also referred to as ESSERs, as we call them. So ESSER 2 was the first amount that was enacted back in December of 2020 under the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act.
The way that this funding allocation was based is off of our Title I. However, the eligible uses and the rules, I'll say, associated with this funding are a little bit different than how our Title I programs run. So right now, Northwestern's preliminary award amount, and we say preliminary because they are finalizing some of those Title I allocations. So we may see some slight changes in that funding amount, $649,298. The second set on the right-hand side there is the ESSER 3. ESSER 3 was enacted as part of the American Rescue Plan, which happened early this winter. Also, the funding is awarded based off our Title 1A allocations. And embedded in this grant, we have required to have a 20% set aside for targeted learning loss. And we'll talk a little bit about how we're going to meet that, that target and even exceed those budgeted numbers for some of the programming that we're looking to implement. So the preliminary award amount for that ESSER 3 funding is $1.3 million. With the 20% set aside reflecting about $262,000. So these are two very significant funding amounts. They're one-time funds that we will receive over a period of possibly 2 into 3 fiscal years. And, combined is close to $2 million of funding. So as you can imagine, we are very grateful for the funding. However, it is one-time funding. So we have to make sure we are budgeting and planning accordingly so that in year 3, we don't have a cliff that we have $2 million hole to fill in our budget associated with these grant funds. So we're trying to be very strategic. We're trying to really prioritize, address the needs of our students and our programs, and maximize really what we are able to get out of these funds that are coming from the federal government. Next slide, please. So there's some general uses of eligible uses under ESSER. Like all of our federal grants, there are specific categories that we must find ways to fit into those categories. We can't just spend federal dollars on whatever we want or whatever our budgetary needs are. Very specific things that we have to write narratives in the grant programs to make sure that we're meeting the requirements, meeting the eligible uses. So of these 12 eligible uses that we have listed here, our planning really hits on 7 of the 12. Different areas, different planning and priority. So, we are hitting a broad, more than half of the eligible uses in our funding plan. And just something to point out, I know this question has come up before, the bipolarization units that we installed, over the Christmas time would have potentially been eligible for ESSER. However, at the time that the district proceeded with that project, we did not know all of the funding requirements, and that project then did not subsequently meet the procurement guidelines. Therefore, it was not deemed an eligible project under the ESSER funding. So that $332,000, if you recall back in the winter, we funded that program through our capital reserve. Under these guidelines, it would have been eligible. However, we would have had to plan and competitively bid that program, or that project differently than what we did back in the winter. So as the team sat down, we really tried to identify priority areas, how to maximize the funding, but also identify the needs of the district, both operationally and educationally. So we looked at the various items and really broke it into 3 priority areas: students, COVID-19 operational mitigation efforts, and then our social and emotional learning. And so the combination of the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 funds will be spread across really these 3 priority areas. So under the student priority area, we're looking at utilizing the supports for student learning loss through our summer programming, through the tutoring program that we're looking to offer, purchasing some additional technology, some subscriptions for software and different student programs that we believe will help with both the learning loss, but also the online learning piece. The COVID-19, this is really operational related to cleaning supplies and equipment and sanitation and some additional things that we do anticipate needing as we enter into the 21-22 school year. And then in the social emotional learning bucket, really taking a look at our programming and making an investment in our social emotional learning through a combination of some services, some programming, but then also some temporary staffing. And as I mentioned before, these are temporary funds, one-time funds that will go away. So although we've addressed it and have identified some needs for some staffing, we're being very careful to make sure that we are clear that it is temporary funding, and when the federal funding goes away, potentially those positions will be removed as well.
And if this is quickly, I could just comment on the technology piece. There were some comments about why preparing technology if you intend for kids to come back 5 days a week. That could be subscriptions they use in school. That could be learning loss subscriptions, or as Mrs. Frisbee said, Mrs. Stitzel enrolls students in the Digital Academy. Those expenses also can be used in terms of the dollars. They cannot be used for outside cyber school expenses, but can be used. We do have a number of students who we believe will intend to enroll in the Digital Academy above and beyond what we have in our budget. And so some of those expenses are for them, not remote learning opportunities, because we anticipate that's where we'll start in the fall.
Okay, thank you. Next slide, Stacey, please. So this is really the budget plan that we have developed based off of those categories and those categories of priority and need. We took a look at the two different grant funding streams, looked at the grant requirements in terms of grant submission through the e-grant system and some of the things we had to put together for the grant application, and broke them into the categories that you see here. I think it's really important to make sure that the board understands that these two grants have the same grant periods and overlap. And so the programs and the services are really all will be running concurrent, even though you see some of them being paid for and funded through ESSER 2 versus ESSER 3. And so really combined, the programs will be offered over the course of the next 2 school years. However, we have identified which particular grant we're assigning that funding to. And so you can see the learning loss. You see there's a very small amount that we're putting in ESSER 2. We looked and evaluated our summer program for that Tiger Summer Smarts and identified that we thought it was appropriate to fund the first week of that out of ESSER 2, because that grant application will be submitted to PE prior to the ESSER 3 grant. And then you can see the remainder of the summer program, and as well as next year's, we are identifying into the ESSER 3 grant. But again, the program will run continuously, whether it's being funded through ESSER 2 or ESSER 3. It's just how we're planning to submit that grant application. And then you can see the different categories: online learning, the mental health, social and emotional learning. Again, those are combinations of temporary staffing, as well as some service or contracted service, programming materials that we may need as we further develop and enhance what the program would look like moving into the next 2 school years. And then technology, equipment and software, and cleaning and sanitation. I think the other thing that's really important to note, we touched on this a little bit when we talked about budgeting. So as a way to be able to appropriately fund the grant and account for eligible uses, we're also able to identify and free up some budgetary funds. So for example, on the technology, equipment and software, we know that we have a recurring need for software replacements or technology replacements that are included in the technology budget year after year. And we know technology is one of those items that is an eligible use under the COVID related ESSER funding. And so what we did is we are assigning and going to reallocate some of those technology replacement costs into the grant funding, which then will free up some budgetary funds that we can use as a one-time funding to work on some other priorities that, in areas of safety and security or other technology needs or needs across the district that, have been on that priority list that we just haven't been able to fund elsewhere. So we're trying to be strategic, again, to make sure we're maximizing and making sure that we are hitting the eligible uses for the funding, but then also looking to say, what do we currently have in the budget? What can we offset? And then what else can we accomplish to make sure that, we're really maximizing the funding, but also maximizing and looking at the needs of the district. One of the other things we looked at that we feel is very important, because although we're talking about the ESSER funding, we really have to look at it in totality across our whole grant program. And so there's different federal grant requirements associated with our IDEA, which is our special ed funding, as well as our title programming, so that, in terms of spending year over year, different maintenance of efforts, different metrics that we are required to match and meet on an annual basis to continue receiving that funding. So that's one of the things that the team is working on, to make sure that as we develop this program, as we spend these dollars, we're also making sure that we're not setting ourselves up and we remain in compliance to still remain eligible for our other funding that we receive on an annual basis. So I know I talked a lot about the programs and the categories, really what is the next step, unless there's any specific questions on kind of our funding plan or things that we're looking for specifically within this. And then I'll just move on to the next steps.
I think there was a question, but I'd like to clarify something. Go ahead, Dr. Rocco.
I'm just curious. Certainly, we'll go ahead with approval tonight. We're being asked for approval, but at some point in time, I'd be curious to see some of the detail, especially with the social emotional. It's a big popular change to be spending. I'd be curious to see what those interventions and programs might look like?
Well, and that was one of the clarifying. So Leslie mentioned some temporary positions. And so out of the funds, we would propose at least 2.5, maybe a little more than that in interventions. And so when our admin team met to really look at how can we make the biggest impact in terms of students, one was an interventionist that we would propose hiring out of those funds as a temporary 2 years. So there's 2 years of a salary for an interventionist in the funds that you mentioned, you saw on Leslie's slide. There's also 2 years of a school social worker to hit the social emotional piece. That would be a district-wide person. And we would propose increasing one of our current folks, as well as some school psychology additional hours above and beyond our current 2 positions. And those would be temporary social emotional. That is in addition to programs. So if you recall, when we approved the strategic plan, there is also, I don't remember exactly the years, maybe Dr. Snowick does, but Mrs. Edmonds is working on a social emotional program. Some of it was rolled out this year at the elementary school in a very small portion, but she's going to put together a team to select a social emotional program, K-12 for our students to work with. That was pre-COVID, identified as an area of need on our strategic plan. I don't have the name of the program, but we have an idea based on the programs about how much they are. So it's programming, interventions, social work, as well as some additional school psychology hours. And that is for 2 years of the grant being 21, 22, and 22, 23.
So the interventionist and behavioral intervention?
Academic.
Academic
intervention.
And the additional school psychology time is for mental health services and not IDEA services?
Mrs. Edmonds is on. I would say one of the challenges this year, and Mrs. Edmonds can speak to this a little better, there are a lot of evaluations that they did this year, and so I think they feel like they are doing evaluations and not necessarily doing other pieces of their job. So I don't know necessarily we figured out who will do evaluations and who will do some of that, but I think that those are, our school psychologists are involved in lots of things from safe to say tips to mental health evaluations to suicidal ideation evaluations, in addition to what is their caseload of evaluating students for special education services. And so we identified this year that there is a need to have, we have currently 2 full-time school psychologists. We're not yet sure if it is a need related to COVID or a need that hit about the same time. And so I don't know if it's a permanent need or a temporary need. Mrs. Edmonds, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
I think you summed it up really well. The bottom line is, while schools were closed, our school psychologists could not meet with students in person. And so for several months, our evaluation process was pushed back. And that was at, the guidance from legal, BSE and PDE. And so once we were able to get kids back in person, once we approved our health and safety plan, we were doing review of records. And I know Dr. Werfel, you're familiar with that, but the actual testing was not able to be completed. And so there was a little bit of a backlog. And then in addition, like Mrs. Holman said, there was the additional, student struggles and student needs that were coming out of a 2-day in-person learning model for some students, where teachers really wanted to be with their students at the times that they could, and then that limited the times that we were able to test students. And so because of the increased need, like Mrs. Holman said, and just because of some of those complications, those additional complications, we're trying to weed through and get caught up essentially, so that we're not pressing 60-day timelines and getting kids the help that they need, really.
I don't know if that answers your question, but obviously when you include salaries, that's where some of the dollars come from. We don't know exactly who will hire for those positions and where the numbers will come in.
Sounds like IDEA plus.
IDEA plus. Well, you have to draw it back, and so I know people always want to use it for just for salaries, but it has to fit in one of those 13 categories. You have to be able to, and Mrs. Stitzel and Mrs. Frisbee are masters at this. When they go into the grant applications, federal money is fantastic. There are also a whole host of requirements. And you literally have to write a narrative as to what the nexus is between what you're asking for, how you'll use it, and why it is somehow connected to COVID-related funding. You can't just use it where you want to use it to make the budget work, and you certainly have to be super cautious with salaries, because as you all know, you add salaries, you add positions, and that's an added service, and then it's taken away. So that's, I think, why we need to be super cautious with how we use the funds, and we use it in a way that is targeted towards any learning loss or any social emotional learning, and in this case, school psychology, overflow, and trying to help meet the needs of both the evaluation timelines as well as what we anticipate, and I think all districts are anticipating will be a huge social emotional need. That I'm not, and I'll tell you why partially we're being buckets of categories. I'm not totally sure what the social emotional impact is going to be when we come back, and I think we need to be very flexible with having some flexibility in both the programs and the people that will be able to meet the needs that are coming that we might be able to guess, but I'm not sure we can totally anticipate.
I understand that. So the other topic that just came up that intrigued me a little bit is the idea of adopting, implementing a social emotional program K-12, which can come with some difficulties.
That's a year out.
To be approved as part of the curriculum by the board at some point in time?
I don't know that necessarily. Some of it is, I would say, included in some of our guidance lessons, but that's a year out, so that's not something we're doing right now. They will go through an investigative process next year by the team and look at a variety of different programs, and certainly we can do a presentation to the board. It's strategies and tools by which you do what you do more than it is a program or a curriculum. Again, Mrs. Edmonds or Mrs. Stitzel both can kind of, but we have also looked at, programs from, managing stress and stress reduction and anxiety with returning to school, and some things that might be temporary social emotional concern. But that was the social emotional adoption of a program of sorts was on the strategic plan when we presented it. I'll say pre-COVID. It just has become exacerbated, and we're going to need to do some interventions, we believe, in the fall. We don't have a program ready for the fall, and it certainly wasn't something that we were going to do this year. But over the course of the next year, selection of a program, and then certainly training and implementation.
But we don't need to do it.
Yeah. Mrs. Edmonds or Mrs. Stitzel, if you have anything to add to that, you're certainly welcome to.
I'm good.
About what percent of our student population would benefit from that $1.3 million?
Oh, goodness. Well, there's technology programs in there that will benefit all kids. So I'd have to figure it out. So some of the programs that are in there, like I said, I know some of the comments were like, that's to do online learning. But these are some programs that, so one of them is a student learning testing software. One is a puzzle game. There's tutoring and summer programs. So the summer programs is a smaller population of students. Our school psychologists hit every single student, affect every single student either proactively, reactively, or certainly in special education. There's a lot. The sanitizers and the PPE gears, every single student across the entire district. We have one of our reading subscriptions. Every elementary student.
What about the mental health and social emotional learning? Is that the entire student body would benefit?
Well, all of our students are trained and safe to say and have the opportunity and understand, as well as clubs at the middle school and the high school in terms of how to cope with anxiety and stress and as things evolve.
And how would we have coped with this without this funding? Obviously, it's related to COVID.
Yeah, one of the questions, the morning call called earlier saying they're actually going to come to the summer program next week, and they asked flat out, would we be able to offer the summer program without this? And I don't believe we would. I don't believe some of the things that we're implementing we would be able to do. Now, certainly, we would prioritize things. So social emotional learning, we would prioritize and we would figure out, as we always do, a way to make that happen. I would tell you, as our folks in counseling and school psychology and our interventionists would tell you, they would be probably overwhelmed without some additional help going into next year. And I'm not sure we, just like, Leslie and I tease and say, when we budgeted for COVID, if you remember, we put $50,000 in the budget. That sounded like a great idea. Like, you see the numbers. Like, we put $50,000 in the budget. And so, even what last year and when we were budgeting, like, we had no idea what this year in terms of PPE gear and finances were going to. And I think the same way about the mental health and the social emotional learning. I mean, we've had kids that have been not in a school for a very long time and are going to need some help to reacclimate to even expectations, even the kids that have been here. Expectations have been different. So I think we just need to prepare to be flexible for whatever comes. I mean, we always do what's best for kids and try to, make it work with what we have. But I do think the addition of a social worker would be a K-12 effort to be able to be proactive more than reactive. Would certainly be there if kids are struggling as well. Something our district has not had before. We have a therapeutic case manager who's fantastic and tries to do everything she can. K-12, there's one of her. And so certainly we're looking at some interventions and some supports. If this is something obviously you approve, that's something that we would like to.
I was disappointed to see that we couldn't get our bipolar project paid for by this because of those restrictions. But and when I guess it's the engineer in me. I'm not a sociologist, but when I look at that $1 million, I think we just put off a $6 million project in the middle school to improve air quality. And when I see $1 million in there, I'm thinking, could we go in and do some of the real severe rooms that we have in that middle school for $1 billion or 500,000 or something like that to improve the air quality? But I don't know if that fits the code thing.
The answer is it probably would, and you'll hear some other districts are using it for straight HVAC. I'm not put her in the spot. I don't know how far you would get because that project was a significant amount of money. And so unless you're willing to either piece it up or do a portion without doing the rest of it. But yes, HVAC is an approved cost. You'll see some other districts that are using their dollars there.
I think if I could just add, I think to Bill's point, that was one of the things that we talked about early on. Do we utilize these dollars to maximize some capital needs, like other school districts are talking about? And I think where we seem to have fallen is $2 million is a lot of money, but it's not as much money as some districts are receiving, and it's not enough money to do a whole project, HVAC project at the middle school. And so, it was the kind of writing down our ideas, costing out, putting some dollars to it to say, okay, here's all the possibilities. Here's what we could spend it on. Now let's take a step back and try to identify like where are the biggest needs and kind of where we'll get the biggest bang for our buck. And the other thing that's important, that's different about these grants compared to our normal college grant cycles is I believe this will be fluid. I think, this is our initial plan, but I believe we'll have grant modifications and it'll be fluid and we'll address make changes and reassess. And, like most of what comes out of PDE and some of the different federal governments, there's still new requirements and things and associated with different metrics that we're going to have to meet with this. And so as we understand all of that and better understand how our plan fits into some of those requirements, I think you will see we'll have some changes, or we'll get into halfway into the school year and realize we need need more funding in this category. Maybe it's learning loss, or maybe it's, in the cleaning and sanitation. And so I think this will be fluid over the next few years. It is a lot of money. And I don't think this is the plan and see it in 3 years when we do the final grant reports. I think it's something that we'll have to stay on top of throughout the year to make sure that we're meeting the requirements, but also meeting the needs and what priorities we have defined. And then unless there's any other questions, the final slide is really just what's the next step. And so if you recall back in January when they had first come out with the ESSER 2 funding, we did seek board approval to apply for that grant. As things evolved, as ESSER 3 was then enacted, we held off on applying until we had a better understanding of the scope, eligible uses, and how the two ESSER funding streams would really dovetail together. So ESSER 2 was already board approved to apply. ESSER 3 is what we are seeking for board approval tonight. We did launch a community survey to get community feedback and input to really try to understand, these are priorities that we've identified, but what are things that the community is looking and seeing as some holes as we move into the next school year, getting back to a normal. And so then what's next? We'll review that survey data. We're going to look to finalize and submit our grant plans to PDE, and obviously make sure we understand the additional grant requirements, make sure that we're able to meet all of that. And so I do anticipate, Leanne and I talked about it, we'll probably file for ESSER 2 within the next few weeks. ESSER 3 will probably hold off to make sure till maybe end of summer to make sure we have a good understanding of the requirements and give us some time to work through those grant applications, because we both know that there's a lot of new things in that application that we want to make sure that, our T's are crossed and our I's are dotted before we hit submit to PDE. That's kind of where we go from here.
Okay, hearing that, is there a motion to approve ESSER 3 grant application?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mrs. Shepard.
Second.
Second by Mr. Weiser. Comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you for that presentation and for bringing that to us. Next item, we could take, we vetted these two items in the workshop, 3.03, the federal grant opportunities, and 3.04, the Title III recommendation to reject. And I would entertain motion for those two items.
Motion approved.
Motion by Mr. Rex. Second by Dr. Warfel. Any comments or questions about those two items that were vetted in the workshop? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Now, the health and safety plan.
I'll certainly intro it and then turn it over to Dr. Sosnowick. This is also a requirement of federal funds. I mentioned to some of you that they were supposed to release a template, not this past Friday, the Friday before, which we were pleased to see is very simplistic in nature in comparison to our multi-page document that we had last year. So we really brought it to you tonight. I will caveat with, we can't tell you that something's not going to change between now and the beginning of the school year. I heard as late as today that the CDC is in the coming weeks releasing guidance for 21-22, and one of the things that this health and safety plan template is guided upon, all of the links that they gave us are linked to CDC guidance. I don't know if the coming weeks means a week from now or it means August 20th. I'm hoping a week from now. But I think what we have in here is where we are as of today. I'll say particular to masks and social distancing. And we certainly have it. Dr. Snow will explain the feedback that we received not only from the team, but also we'll put this on the survey to send out to our families to request their feedback for what we expect will be in place for this summer program that starts June 21st, as well as what we expect for next school year. Many things could change, and I don't know where the advice or where the information will be, but we didn't want to wait until August, knowing that we didn't have a July board meeting and that we had summer programs that needed some different guidance to run on. And so we decided to bring it to you tonight, but I can't tell you in August there won't be a revision. But right now, this is where we are, and notwithstanding additional advice, I believe this is where we're comfortable being and recommending going into next school year, and our team is certainly supportive. Dr. Snow.
Thank you, Mrs. Holman. As she mentioned, we knew and anticipated that there would be a health and safety plan required for the upcoming year. So we had already started making adjustments. We knew we needed at a minimum for our summer programming that was happening in July and August. So we had a lot of our thoughts, and we were starting to gather input from our stakeholders. Last week, PDE did release a template similar to what you see here. We Northwesternized it. We never like what PDE puts out. We like to make sure it's reflective of our district and that it's more thorough. So we built out their plan, and what you see before you is a combination of all the input that we gathered from our stakeholders. So we use the same health and safety, we'll call them team members that we used last time. We reached out to them. We gathered their input, reached out to our health partners, LVHN, other folks, to give us some of the interpretation that they may have with regard to the guidance that was put out. You'll see, as Mrs. Holman mentioned, it's pretty straightforward. There were 3 questions that they typically asked us to address. And then the third one being the most substantive, with the amount of different components in it relative to masks, physical distancing, hand washing. What you will see different from what PDE gave us before than what they are suggesting now is an extreme pivot toward CDC. What we've now noticed is throughout this pandemic, there was a big push from the Pennsylvania state, particularly Department of Health, to suggest that we need to follow their guidelines, DOH. They're issuing face mask orders. They're instituting, making their own recommendations. They are not doing that this time. They've now pivoted and say just follow what the CDC is putting out with regard to guidelines. And as Mrs. Holman mentioned, yesterday afternoon, it was announced that CDC is putting out additional guidelines for the 21-22 school year. So I'm hopeful that they're going to give them to us prior to the week before school, but with anticipation of where things are going, what we know now, what's out on CDC, this is the health and safety plan that we put together. Be glad to answer any questions you may have with regard to it. But I think as you cruise through it, you'll see it's pretty straightforward.
We've had this to view in our devices for a while now. Dr. Warfel, is there anything you'd like to add? Having been on the committee?
No, I had a chance to review it. I was very happy to see some of the significant changes in it. I hope they stay.
Okay, this is listed. Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the health and safety plan as presented or as shown in the devices.
Motion to approve the plan.
Motion by Dr. Warfel. Is there a second? Second by Mrs. Shepherd. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. Nice job. Looks like it's getting a little simpler. Maybe it stays that way. Okay, under policy, we have no first reading. We just have the 3 policies that we've had on the books here for 30 days. 3 policies. Have you received any suggestions on those 3 policies that we thought this year? I would entertain it. They were vetted at or asked about at the workshop. I would entertain a motion to approve the 3 policies on the 4.02. Motion by Mrs. Lister. Second by Mrs. Kipler.
Yeah, second.
And any comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion carried. And that gets us out of policy into operations. And we have a food service agreement with Northern Lehigh School District. I think that was just finalized. We talked about it in the workshop, but we didn't have to final document.
Yeah, that's right. We were waiting for Lehigh themselves to approve the agreement before we brought it forward, but we did mention and discuss it at the last meeting.
I would ask the board if we could take 5.01, 0.02, and 0.03, all food service agreements that we discussed in the workshop as a consent agenda. And a motion to approve all 3.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Weiser. Second by Mr. Hernandez. Any comments or questions? The last minute changes? No. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you.
Mr. Delic, I'd like to just give Mrs. Starr an opportunity. She is with the nutrition group, which will be our food service management company. And she wanted just to welcome.
She was with us tonight.
She's with us tonight. Would you mind?
No, absolutely. Let's, sure.
Mrs. Starr, would you like to address the board?
Yes, thank you so much.
We can hear you, Mrs. Starr.
Okay, thank you so much. We are so excited to become a part of the Northwestern community, and we are excited to be your food service management company. If there's ever anything you need, please let us know. We will be here. We are meeting tomorrow with our transition team to talk over some things, and we're here with whatever questions you may have.
Mrs. Starr, do you think Mr. Morrissey would like to address?
Jim, would you like to speak?
Sure, I just want to echo what I think you had to say. Looking forward to meeting your team of workers in the cafeterias and working with them through this transition time. I got to be a part of the walkthrough and enjoyed the drive between schools. It's a beautiful school district and looking forward to spending more time there. Thank you.
We didn't give you much of a chance to speak this evening, but we have discussed these 3 items extensively in our workshop meetings leading up to this approval this evening. And thank you for being with us. And we will be looking forward to seeing a lot of smiling faces in the lunch line that's coming here. Okay.
I already muted him in defense.
We didn't hear him chuckle. Okay, let's move on then to, thank you for joining us this evening. Let's move to Meals Plus agreement. That's something I don't think we've talked about.
It's not. And the backstory on the Meals Plus agreement, as we start to begin transition with the nutrition group, we start to evaluate our existing contracts. What we had discovered was one of our software agreements, Meals Plus, which is our point of sale, basically when kids go up to the register and pay for their meal, that software was never appropriately vetted by the school board. So what we had decided to do was bring it forward to the solicitor's office. Attorney Moyer does have the contract. It is being reviewed by her office, and we will look to finalize that and with your approval. And this software has been in place, I believe, for upwards of 12 to 14 years. So it's something that's been around for a long time. But again, as we look to do these renewals, we just want to do our due diligence and making sure that we're following the proper board protocols.
So we need approval for this.
Yes, sir.
I would entertain a motion then to approve the Meals Plus agreement that we have in front of us. Is there a motion?
Make a motion.
Motion by Mrs. Sheffield. Second by Mr. Hernandez. Any comments and questions from the board? Thank you for your explanation. Hearing no comments, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Next item is the Elk Environmental Services. I think that's already been done. We talked about it in the workshop. Did we get a final bill?
They did not yet.
So what are we approving here?
This is the contract retroactively.
Retroactive contract.
Yes,
For the removal services. Yeah.
And
we call them in on emergency basis.
do we have to approve the payment then?
You will on the bills when we pay them, certainly, when we get the final bill.
Okay. All right. Something had to be done. That was our Mercury School that we had in the middle school.
Correct. And high school.
In high school. A motion to approve the retroactive approval of that emergency response.
Motion approved.
Motion by Mr. Rex. Second by Dr. Wolfel. Comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Now, District finances as we come to the end of the budget. This is all information that we've seen before. I think it's except for the first item, 6.01 and all the bills. But I would, let's take item 6.01 and talk about that. We'll take that by itself, and then we'll move into the budget items and then all the agreements.
I can certainly talk about it. Mrs. Frisbee or Mrs. Stitzel can also talk about it. I'll certainly talk. I don't know if Mrs. Frisbee's on, Mrs. Stitzel as well. This is a Warren County school district. It's another school district in Pennsylvania that offers cyber services. And so one of the things I have talked about to the board before is we are waiting for our final commitments on our instructional option survey and the number of students that wanted to select a completely remote option next year. And we do have a number of students, but we also in that questionnaire asked them about the amount of live services that they were interested in terms of synchronous options. And so this is a school district in Pennsylvania that offers their own cyber academy, and it does have an increase in cyber services, synchronous services in the cyber realm that we would like to use as another provider. Mrs. Stitzel does use a number of providers in the Digital Academy, and we would just like to have her have this as an opportunity for students who might need additional live services. Mrs. Stitzel, Frisbee, if you're on.
This is Mrs. Stitzel, but I think the main difference between this provider and the other ones that we currently utilize is not necessarily the curriculum, but it is the option to have live instruction from a Pennsylvania certified teacher. So this provider actually offers daily live instruction in all of the core areas for elementary students, and then once a week for the core subjects at the middle level. They do not provide live instruction at the high school level, however, but we did think that this was a viable option that we think would be better perhaps for our elementary students that want this type of instruction in our digital academy.
Mrs. Moyer is on. She did review this. I know there was a comment that she just wanted to make a comment to the board. She did propose a revision that was not accepted, and Mrs. Moyer wants to make.
Yes, good evening. We just had some concerns with regard to the cooperation and communication of this provider when dealing with special education students and making sure that they were going to be on board and cooperate with us in the event there were any issues or due process instituted against the district. They have declined to make that revision and any other revision that we requested. So while I think you can approve that, I did advise Ms. Stitzel and Mrs. Frisbee and Mrs. Holman, that is an issue that we have seen come up with other districts when entering into these contracts.
So you don't see a problem with it?
It could be, as long as there are no issues with special ed students, you should be fine.
Can you control that?
Issues with special education students? No, I can't control that.
I mean, approving this vendor for special education students.
No, so you can't say that we won't use it for special education students. No, you can't control that. I make control here. I'm like, no, we can't control that. But we do have a number of vendors, and we do handle, and Mrs. Edmonds is on and is aware of the general concern. We have taken some of the special education concerns, but if they're doing live teaching, they would have to implement some of the SDIs. It's a little different than an asynchronous approach. You have a live teacher that would have to implement an IEP, which is why the concern is coming up with this particular contract and hasn't come up with other contracts, because we have a number of digital providers in terms of contract services. And regardless of the provider, as long as they are in one of the programs in Digital Academy, we're the LEA. So we are the school district of record that would have to deal with any due process that would come up, regardless of the provider, whether it's Warren County or another one. Mrs. Edmonds, I don't know if you don't have anything to add to that.
Well, I would just, inform the board that this is, I would say, not a relatively new issue. And I think this is why we have always been very cautious about recommending outside, not outside, just virtual programs or any type of cyber education to parents of special needs children. It's obviously, for the majority of our students, it's obviously not the best place of education for them. This year, being forced to explore this a little bit further, we have created co-case managers where we've kept a case manager in our school district and coordinated with our related service providers where we were able to provide the service for the students. And in those cases, we have made it work. In some cases where we recognize that it's not really going to be an ideal situation for the student, we do contact the parents and have a conversation with them so that they understand what, they're really embarking on and what services their child would have. So I think just being upfront, honest, and having those conversations ahead of time is very helpful, or has been very helpful for us in the past. I appreciate Attorney Moyer's concerns because I think at any given time, for something like with a special need issue, but there's always that liability that exists.
Well, it certainly looks like a reasonable cost for this service.
Yeah, that was our search. So you heard me mention earlier that some of the costs that are in the grant are Access Digital Academy costs above and beyond what it is that we have in our budget. And so that is part of it, but we were looking for something that obviously met the needs of the students that wanted remote learning, some of them wanting live, at a relatively cost-effective cost point. And so you'll see the cost is $29.50 with a $50 enrollment, so about straight $3,000 per student on the cost for a student that we would enroll here. And that's a full year of courses for those students.
So we don't have the survey back yet that would tell us how many families still want to use remote learning next year.
We do. We have at least 40 students that are requesting remote learning. We do have some students that are currently enrolled in remote learning that have not responded definitively one way or another. There are 36 students that have not responded definitively one way or another, but we have 39 or 40 confirmed students that wish to have a 100% remote learning option.
And
now, whether that's the same in August is a whole other story. That is their commitment as of May.
So what is there a deadline for those 36 people that haven't committed yet?
Our principals, their deadline is passed, yes. The principals have done multiple reach outs and will continue to do so. We did tell families in the survey that if they didn't respond, they would be enrolled in 5 days a week learning. So that's what we will do. But those are the students I most wanted to check into because they're the students currently that are 100% online and have yet, even though we have allowed students to return, have not returned. And so we did have principals and staff in each of our buildings reach out multiple times, several by email and personal phone calls to try to get definitive answers from those 36 families, but we definitely have 39 or 40 that have definitively said, yes, we want 100% online.
And I assume they're scattered throughout all grade levels.
They are.
Of course. So this would allow us to offer live online training for those children, which would relieve our teachers from having to do online as well as in-person training.
That is a possibility. Yes, I will say that we have in the past, even prior to COVID, offered some online with our teachers. And so that's a possibility in the future. But yes, certainly this would be an option for students who want live instruction. And you heard Mrs. Stitzel, it's not live at the high school. It's every single day at the elementary. It's once a week per course in the middle school. It is not live at the high school.
Oh, it's every other day?
Every day.
Oh, every day. And is this eligible for ESSER 3 funding?
Yes, and we have some of the ESSER $3. So that was what at the very beginning when Mrs. Frisbee mentioned online learning. I think when parents saw that, they initially went to, why are you preparing for online learning? And a lot of the comments on the survey are, why are you preparing for online learning if you said you're coming back 5 days a week? Because there's still families in the district that want online learning, that there's finances associated with that. That might be programming, but also we have additional funds in the ESSER money for digital academy providers. Warren County might be one of them, but Mrs. Sitzel also has 3 or 4 others.
So this is a little bit different than a charter school. This is maybe a temporary fix for the parents who are still reluctant to send their kids back to school because of COVID.
Well, yeah, I mean, part of our obligation is obviously to try to meet the kids' needs and all of our kids. And the majority of them do want to come back. But we have I said in, I think, a prior board meeting, we don't have enough students to make full classes in any place. And so larger districts have full sections and classes they're able to make. But we have too many students financially to not offer an option and they go elsewhere. That's not a financially viable option either. And so we're in this middle ground of there are too many students that wish to have something other than the 5-day-a-week program we want to provide, but not enough to make full sections where I can dedicate teachers to do so. Particularly at the high school as it gets more and more complicated with certifications. So you need to have not only a Pennsylvania certified teacher, but they need to be certified in the area in which they're teaching students. And so we don't have holes, and I'll just, Mrs. Jadish is on, I can speak to this better. She doesn't have holes in her section where she has a teacher free that can pick up the online student. Without them having the potential to pick up the students in their classroom, we have to find another alternative for that. So there's not an extra section. Sorry.
So I get all the, the risk of I understand the financial risks. We've been talking about this for months. I guess my like practical mind goes back to like, what did we do pre-COVID? I feel like there were times where we made exceptions for students to do online programs because they have extensive like extracurricular activities that caused them to be out of school more than in, and they needed to continue their learning. I got that. But I feel like this has become like the norm that we have to adapt to. And it's like my mind goes to like, what happened to going to school? So, and I don't mean that in like I don't mean that in any sort of negative way as it sounds. I'm just trying to understand, you're making a lot of concessions with schedules and now, additional organizations that you have to contract with because there is this group of students spread throughout our district that are forcing you to come up with alternatives. And I'm just struggling with, if we are getting better on the other side of the pandemic and, the return to school is going to happen, at what point do you say, like, we return to school, like kids go to school?
Yeah, I mean, well, we've always offered, that's a valid point. We've heard, I'll say, just as polarizing as everything else, we've heard both sides of the polarizing argument you're displaying now. We've always offered the Digital Academy. It hasn't been to the number of students I'm talking about in terms of 40. Part of funding legislation about school choice is part of why that has made, us be responsive to that, to be quite honest, in terms of cyber legislation per se. And we've talked very openly about that at this board table several times. But we've always offered the Digital Academy. Oftentimes it is families who work or want the flexibility and, or families that might have health concerns on COVID, not COVID related. I would tell you on the survey, just polarizing as everything else, there are people that the decision about whether students have to wear masks in school make the decision about what they're going to do on both sides of the ticket. So I know there are people that say, you don't require masks and we'll come back. There are equally people who are saying, if you don't require people to get vaccinations, my kid's not coming back until you do so. And so we've answered very, I'll say diplomatically when we've been asked that. The mask order is in place, not because I wanted it in place. If you remember in August, we were coming back with masks encouraged and we were coming back 5 days per week. That all shifted August 12th, unbeknownst and uncontrolled by us. The Department of Health order is what really requires the mask. And you saw in our health and safety plan a moment ago that when that order is relieved, we will relieve that requirement. The same goes true with, coming back to school and vaccinations. We've been asked many, many times, are you going to require vaccination? Jason can attest to, I had a phone call the other day that they wanted them absolutely required for every PIAA athlete, which I said, is that a thing? Like, I called him because they wanted to know why we weren't doing that. And I said, we don't make vaccination requirements. Like, we made enough health and safety decisions this year that affect people's lives for the eternity. But health immunization requirements are a Department of Health school entry. The school health department and the Department of Health require immunizations for school entry. If they require COVID vaccination for school entry, we too will require it. But up until that point, we are not going to do that. I mean, we certainly will offer it. We've offered many opportunities, but we recognize that that's a family decision for employees themselves or families themselves as adults, but also for their children, whether they want that or not. But there are very polarizing views that there are families that will see the masks, and if it ends up continuing to be, they can come back with an optional mask requirement, which is what's built in the health and safety plan you approved tonight, that will say, good, that made my decision, I will come back. We will have just as many that will say, I'm not comfortable with that, and now where's my other option? And so it's very polarizing in terms of the commentary and the comments that we got on the commitment survey, that there's not going to be a right decision that's going to be right. But yes, we agree. That is part of the reason why you, as a parent, you got the March survey and you got the May survey. The March survey had what preferences do you want? The May survey gave them a very definitive, we're coming back 5 days a week and this is your option. Although we do have the digital academy, we always have the option to homeschool your student, which have been in existence prior. But there are still some families that chose 100% remote learning as their option. Whether it's health or safety related, or it's some other reason related, we did always have families not to this number, which is why we've buffered some of the dollars through ESSER funds.
Yeah, I just want to dovetail. One, I'll just give you the number. We actually, at the start of the 2019 school year, we had 9 students. We had 9 in Digital Academy versus what we're looking at now. So it's a huge, like 400 times difference.
Wow.
The other piece I wanted to just accentuate what she mentioned is that some families may have always wanted to maybe try Digital Academy, but was not sure whether or not that model of learning was appropriate for them. Mm-hmm. The COVID-19 and us going online gave everybody exposure to what online learning is. So I think out of a result of that, there's a percentage of our families that see that that really meets their lifestyle, regardless of even like the health and safety concerns of mask, no mask, or whatever. I think there's a number of families also that say, you know what, the flexibility or the online, the not having to get up in the morning as early or going to school on a bus and all that, that meets the needs of my family. And so that's also what's contributing to that number as well.
Yeah, and just to give you an example, we've talked very candidly about the numbers. And so, you look at the 39 students or 40 students we have selected Digital Academy, and this is certainly 3,000, but there are other providers we have there somewhere in the area of 4,250. And so we've used kind of that number as 4,250. If you take the 39 students times the 4,250, it's $170,000. But you have to remember it's triple that if they go and that's only if they're regular, if they decide to choose a cyber school other than us. So it's that risk benefit. How do you accommodate their needs? And try to keep them obviously in Northwestern students. When we do have a Digital Academy that's very successful, I mean, I'm going to tell you 39 students for Leanne to manage next year that are all over the place in all different grades is also going to be difficult to manage. And if it ends up being more than that, our hope is, just like happened from the March to the May survey, is significantly less students decided to choose that. I have to imagine that as we get closer to August and things settle in about what the rules will be or will not be, our kids genuinely want to be back. We also recognize, and Mrs. Stitzel and I talked about this, is that there are some families in there that are in the 5 to 12 year age bracket that might change their mind once the vaccination is available, but that is sometime in the fall. We've heard the end of September, we've heard sometime in the fall, so we recognize that there's also students in there that might start the school year in Digital Academy. And once they have the opportunity for their child to be vaccinated, then might switch instructional models whenever the vaccination might be available for 5 to 12 year olds.
A couple practical questions on this agreement though. So it sounds like this is basically an alternative agreement to your current digital offering. It offers a live instruction option. That's not really detailed very well in this agreement, though. When I read it, I don't see where it tells us how many hours they're going to be in live instruction. You know, it says that they're going to be operating an online instructional program administered by certified instructional personnel. So I'm just specific to this agreement, I guess. I don't see a specific outline on how this is different than the other digital academy options. It just doesn't really give us that level of detail in the actual contract, unless I'm missing it. I've kind of gone up and down on it a few times, but I'm not seeing those details.
No, I mean, they gave us a flyer and Mrs. Stitzel has it in certainly writing. And Mrs. Stitzel, I'll let you certainly answer this. We've had the communication with them. We do have it in writing from them about what it is, but it's not detailed in the contract. I don't know that it is in any of our other contracts either in terms of their expectations for live. I would tell you the primary mode of most cyber schools that we have previously contracted with is completely asynchronous. Even the providers that say we do offer live, when you get down and dirty and ask them how much live, Mrs. Stitzel and I were on a call earlier in May, maybe end of April, and said, how much live do you offer when you ask them to kind of to put that in writing or put that out? They would say twice a week, but it's the same lesson twice a week. Well, it's really once a week. Mrs. Stitzel, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, and that I will be glad to do that. The contract that was previously approved, I believe it was a few months ago for Pearson, was a great example of that. I don't believe anywhere in that contract it mentioned how many live lessons they do. However, it is in all of their documentation and their brochures and everything that they do send out. But they were the one agreement that we had looked at, and they did offer, but it was only one time a week, and then it was a repeat if students wanted to see it. Now, in every case, you know, the teachers are available for students if they have questions, etc. And they could do some live meetings for any of our providers that we utilize, including this one. However, this is the one that had, when we had the meeting with her and she outlined it in writing in an email back to me, that they specifically utilize the teachers for live instruction multiple times a week at the elementary level.
And we asked a lot of questions of the providers that we were considering because I was taking the initiative of the student or the initiative of the teacher. And so having office hours available to a student is very different when the student has to initiate the reach out to that particular faculty member, especially based on the grade. Then the initiative by the teacher to say, you have class tomorrow at 9 o'clock, here's your link. And so we asked a lot of questions, not only about the amount of live, but is it initiated by the student? Because a lot of those office hours, although their teacher is available, it's student initiated reach out versus a staff assigned time.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think, again, somebody who chooses to go down this path as a parent is kind of choosing to go down this path, right? So they're going to get the education that's provided by this service. I would just recommend that they're not giving us any in Exhibit A. There is no benefit financially to committing to a half year or a full year. However, we are obligated once we've committed to a seat. If that parent decides to return to school, we are not going to receive that money back unless we can place another student in that seat. So two things. One is I would encourage us to just book half-year seats. The second would be question. Can we put the obligation on the parent if they decide at some point midstream that they want to pull their child out of this program and back to our program, if they reimburse us for the loss that we would be sustaining by having a child pulled out?
Well, I'll answer the first, and then Jess, I don't know if the second's legal, so I'll throw that one to you. The first is yes, if you recall last meeting, we mentioned that the provider we use might depend because some of them do daily rates. And so Mrs. Stitzel is in the process now, the people who have selected Digital Academy between their counselor and the principal, trying to identify, are they a student that has identified they're there for the year? because we do have providers that just charge by the day. And so even down to further than what you said in terms of booking half seats, this is probably not a provider we would choose with a student that we had any indication after a vaccine or was sort of not sure in terms of seats, because this is a seat allocation. You can refill it, but yeah, if we anticipate the number to go down and not have any fluctuation in and out, this is probably not the program you would provide. You would go with the provider. The daily rate program, cumulatively over the year, is more expensive. But we already talked about making very selective choices about the program, since they are so similar. They all offer, state curriculum. They all offer Pennsylvania certified teachers, about making very wise choices based on what we believe the intentions, or the families in some cases have outright told us their intentions. Because we do have daily providers as well. Mrs. Attorney Moyer, I don't know if what Mr. Leiser was proposing is legal. If they select a digital academy and they commit to it, and then they come back prior, can they be billed for the remainder? I think it's a free and appropriate public education, but I'll throw it to you.
Yeah, agreed, Mrs. Holman. And the parties to this contract would be the district and this provider. So then it would be on the district to attempt to contract with the parents, which I do not think is legal. And in addition to that, I believe that that would then drive students and parents to other cyber options versus utilizing yours.
Okay. Good try. Nice try. What?
Bill would be.
Well, this, I think it's a good agreement. I think it's a good option, but one of the things I'd like to see, when you, I think it was your last board report, you sent a chart that showed student assessments for our students at Northwestern Lehigh compared to all of the charter cyber schools. Those that we are affiliated with or just in the area? I don't remember the.
It's actually Mrs. Frisbee put together, and the ones, the charter schools and cyber schools that she selected for the reporting for that chart are all of the charter schools and cyber schools where our students are currently attending.
Okay, and if you look at that chart, I don't have it in front of me, but our students here at Northwestern Lehigh are head and shoulders above all of those charter schools that are listed there, including Circle of Seasons and the other schools that we send kids to. And I think even with something like this, to help a parent make a decision, I think that they ought to have some data like that to look at to say, okay, you're pulling your kid out of this school where performance is up here, and you're choosing to put them in a school where the performance is down here. It's your choice, but we don't recommend it. And I don't see why a parent would do that. But that's something for the future.
Yeah, I mean, certainly we're
It's
very proud.
marketing, I guess.
We're very proud of the education we provide and the student performance of our kids, and even one up. I mean, even our cyber providers. I mean, I've been our teachers, as I said at the beginning of the meeting, have done a fabulous job. And I would put our teachers in what they did this year and any other year up against any other school district, public school district, or otherwise. And so the best place for our kids is in front of a teacher here at Northwestern next year.
Absolutely. And just to throw something into the decision these parents are making for convenience or whatever it is versus the educational benefits that their kids would get for going here. So, okay, is there a motion to approve this cyber agreement with Warren County School District?
Motion.
Motion by Mrs. Lister.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Shepherd. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Following through district finances, Leslie, I know you're still with us, but I would like to ask the board if they'd be willing to take item 6.02 through 6.08. These are all items that we have vetted at the workshop meetings that we've had in the past leading up to tonight, the final budget, the use of committed fund balance and the resolution that goes along with that, the homestead farmstead, the capital reserve transfer, district depositories, and the annual investment report that we saw in the workshop. And I would ask for motion to approve 6.02 through and including 6.08.
Motion to approve the agenda items as noted.
Motion by Dr. Warfel.
Second.
Second by Mr. Rex. Are there any comments, questions? Or Leslie, any comments you'd like to make about any of those items?
I have no additional comments unless there's any specific questions on the items. These are all associated with the annual budget process and our routine items that you see before you.
Okay. Hearing no comments or questions, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. And again, items 6.09 through 6.19 are all items that have been vetted in our workshop meeting. These are all agreements, standard routine items, many of them. We discussed all of these items with the intermediate unit, Raven College, Power School, Sapphire, Behavioral Health Associates, PSBA renewal, the Employee Assistant Program, Fitness Headquarters, the season ticket prices, and the Northern Valley EMS agreement have all been vetted in our workshop, and I will entertain a motion to approve all those as a consent agenda. Motion by
I'll make a motion.
Mrs. Shepherd, second by
Second.
Mr. Lizer. Any comments or questions about any of those items which we have just previously discussed? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Item 620 and 621, payment of bills, June and July, have to do with us not having a board meeting in July. This is a routine item that we do every year. I want to entertain a motion to approve the payment of the bills June 30th, 621, payment of bills July 2021, and accepting the reports which were vetted at the workshop meeting. So it's those three items. Motion by Mrs. Lister, second by Mr. Hernandez. Comments or questions? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. And the last item on our finance is to enumerate those to whom we are in debt. Motion by to pay the bills.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Ricks, second by Mr.
Second.
Hernandez. Comments or questions?
We have abstentions, 3 of us.
There are let's see,
Three
how many?
of us.
There
So
are
we need to make sure.
Joe's on, gotta get Joe. You 4 and Joe.
there are 8 of us tonight, so we still have okay. We have 3 abstentions to paying the bills for interest, Mr. Lizer, Mrs. Sheffler, and Mrs. Lister. So we had a motion and a second, I believe, right?
Yes.
Okay, any comments or questions? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Enrollment report, anything you'd like to point out about that, Mrs. Holman?
I do not. I certainly, as Dr. Sikowick mentioned, we watch the numbers very closely, and I'll certainly take any questions that you might have.
Comments or questions on enrollment? Straightening away. Next item are committee reports from the IU, Dr. Wolfel.
We have a meeting next Monday night. We did meet since our last board meeting in May. We had a meeting in May, and it featured a presentation that night from the early intervention. Folks, I don't know that a lot of people realize that there's a very extensive program that the intermediate unit is responsible for operating from 325 under federal law regarding special needs students. There is a wide variety of services available to youngsters starting at age 3, and then also tracking those students and following them into placements within the elementary school. So they said something like they may be serving as many as 2,200 students in that age category in early intervention for a variety of services, including full-time school programs. It's not just consultation. And I just think a lot of people are aware of that level of need and the extent of the services. So the layers of services that the IA provides that I just think people have no idea about. So I like to mention them when they present it to us. Really an important step. We talk about early intervention with students with special needs, and there it is. It exists by law and by quality of service. And they made that all happen during COVID somehow. Sure of it. And we meet again next month.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Wilkie. LCTI, Mr. Fatsinger, are you with us yet?
Yep, nothing to report at this time.
Okay, L5C, nothing to report. We had a recent brochure that was sent to all of us from L5C that covered all the students that we sent there from Northwestern Lehigh. That was pretty interesting. They do that for all the school districts just so they can focus in on the benefits that our kids are receiving from the college. And Rec Commission, Mr. Hernandez.
Fields are open, they're in use. Light of the country is still moving forward.
Is there a date for that?
There is. You have to go back to the prior year. So we did.
I have it.
August. So yeah, it's in August 17th.
So there is a night in the country.
Yep, we're planning and moving forward with that. And we also bought a lawn tractor last month.
Okay.
So cut the grass.
Okay.
Are you riding?
No, I'm not.
All right, thank you. Any old business? Nothing on the agenda. Any board member have old business? What about new business? No new business. We do need a PSBA delegate to two of them to go to the assembly. It's a little bit different this year. I think it's a different venue, isn't it?
A different venue and the delegate assembly is a little bit different. So Stacy put the information there because we did preemptively book a few hotel rooms. We did that Kalahari this year, but the delegate assembly is not at the same time as the conference. So I don't know if that makes a difference of who will want to attend, but if you see the action items, they are looking for 2 board members to represent the district as voting delegates. The conference is September 27th through 29th, but the voting delegate assembly is October 23rd. So they used to be, if you recall, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Friday was always the delegate assembly. They did split that out this year.
Okay, we have that information in front of us. I don't think we have to respond yet, no later than July 23rd. So
Problem is we don't have a board meeting before then. We don't have a board meeting before July 23rd.
So if anybody's interested in that, give me a call and we'll make arrangements through Stacy to get your name involved. I think John and Joe were there.
It does say it's available via Zoom.
Yeah. Yeah, so read through this if you'd like to attend either Zoom or in person or whatever the hybrid setup is that they have mentioned here. Give me a call if you'd like to go to be involved with that, and we'll get you enrolled.
Does it include passes to the water park?
Oh, I don't know yet.
Joe got a swim
You've
team already.
That's great.
And Todd, Night in the Country used to be on, I just looked it up because we always put it up for school, but now it's not on the website, so.
I'll run through my notes here.
I couldn't find the date, Tom. I was looking for the.
It's the 17th, a Saturday in August.
No, that's a Tuesday.
That's not
Yeah, you know, we kind of looked at it the other day because ironically, all of our back to school information usually goes out. Maybe August 21st, probably already.
I'll find it.
I put it on the 17th. I thought Tuesday was on.
August 21st.
But I wasn't gonna go get to a doctor.
August 21st.
I would expect it to be August 21st.
Yes, it is.
You want to get a good seat on the 17th.
August 21st.
August 21st. I would have expected it to be August 21st, but
That's it.
August 21st.
August 21st.
August 21st.
I didn't mention.
Fireworks, big celebration.
Fireworks are
biggest ever.
Okay. Let's move to courtesy of the floor. At this point, we will offer courtesy of the floor to anybody who is still with us and would like to address the board.
For what? There it is. Mr. Walberg.
Thanks, Troy. Good evening, everybody. I just wanted to take a minute with regards to the Educational Foundation. First, I wanted to say thank you to Leslie for all of her hard work with the administration over the years. It's been a pleasure, obviously, working with you, and best of luck with your future endeavors. Also wanted to update the board on several things that's either recently transpired with regards to the Educational Foundation and things that are coming up. First, the 5K was held Memorial Day weekend. And even though we had extremely challenging weather, we had a tremendously successful event with a huge turnout and record-setting fundraising efforts with regards to that event. So that's very exciting, and would like to personally thank Troy, who was able to attend the event and participate in it, even though the weather wasn't exactly the best. One of the rare moments that we had with the 5K where the weather wasn't very good. Also, we have our countdown of summer going on right now, our raffle, which is going on, I think, until the end of this week to raise funds. It's a new event for us. And we have our golf tournament coming up in August, which we expect that and the clay shoot to be record events for us with how things are going right now. Things are going very, very well at the foundation. And I just wanted to make a note. I know that there's a lot of things going on with regards to a lot of the COVID funding that I know Leslie was talking about the ESSERs and whatnot. But on the foundation side, we have a lot of efforts going on right now to really take our funding to the next level for the school district. And our anticipation in the next fiscal year of 21-22 is that the amount of money that's going to be available to fund programs at the school district is going to be increased dramatically. And I just want to make sure that the administration and the board keeps that in mind, because it's going to be very important that when we have these funds available, that we understand what's going to be needed in the school district and how we can most effectively use it. Because I think the last thing that either the school district or the foundation wants is for us to be able to be very successful in the funding that we bring in, and have it not be able to be used as efficiently and timely as possible. So I know that I've indicated that to the administration previously, and I just want to make sure that that is being kept in mind as we move into the new fiscal and school year.
Well, thank you, DJ. I'm glad you chimed in here, because I apologize for missing the foundation report on the agenda just before the committee reports. And it's always good to have you with us, and always hear your optimistic and positive things that are going on personally and for the school. And it sounds like people are excited to get out after this COVID thing, and hopefully your events are going to be huge successes like your last one was. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Yeah, thank you. No problem.
Any other comments? Nobody else want to address the board? Okay, well, thank you everybody for attending this evening and staying with us to the end of the meeting. We do have let's see, communications from the secretary. John's not with us. Stacy, do you have anything for the board? And we'll move into administrative and building sharing.
Mr. DeVico.
Good evening. I just want to thank the middle school staff and students for giving it their all this school year and really persevering through less than ideal conditions. And also the middle school parents for their ongoing and untiring support this school year especially. I hope they all have a restful, peaceful, and enjoyable summer. Thanks, everybody.
Mrs. Pulley.
Yes, just to echo what Mr. DeVico said, kudos to all of the NWE students, staff, and families for a fantastic year despite all of the challenges that we faced. Have a great summer, everybody.
Mrs. Stitzel?
Yes, thank you. I just want to take a moment and wish Leslie all the best in her new endeavor. I will surely miss her friendship and also working with her to navigate all the complexities of the federal program grants like we do every year. But I wish her all the best.
Mrs. Burlap?
Good evening, and I echo what Bill and Maria said. Just thank you to all of the Weisenberg students, staff, and families for persevering through this year. And I hope that they are all enjoying the beginning of their summer and will take the time to refresh and rejuvenate. And we are looking forward to starting next year. Thank you, everyone.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes, just one more good news item to report. The student athletes and coaches at the high school were crowned the Colonial League Cup champions in both the female side, the male side, and the overall. So that award was presented at a Colonial League meeting last week. That's just a tribute to the accomplishments and the hard work that everybody put in. So just, again, one more piece of hardware to add to the shelf. Leslie, congratulations. You deserve it. I mean, we're going to miss you. Selfishly, this stinks, but you know, I'm very happy for you, and you earned that. So congratulations, and I hope you stay in touch. You were an athletic director's business manager, that's for sure. I just don't know how else to say it.
I just want to take a moment as well to wish Leslie the best of luck. And certainly she shaped me as an administrator in the years we got to work together. And her leadership is going to be missed beyond belief. I don't know how you replace her, but that's a task that we're left with, but she will always be missed.
Mrs. Evans?
Likewise, I'd like to wish Leslie the best. Obviously, as Mr. Delaker said, this is really bittersweet. I am overjoyed for her. I know this is something, like many of the other administrators said, that she has worked hard for and she deserves, and Parkland's going to love her as much as we did. But yeah, we will miss her terribly, and I don't want that to certainly overshadow her new adventure. So best wishes, Leslie.
Mrs. Yadish?
As my colleague shared, I too want to thank everyone at the high school, the students, the staff, the families, for all that they did to make this year the very best they could for our students. Huge congratulations to the class of 2021. We really managed to give them a very nice ceremony, so thank you to everyone who participated in that as well. I hope everyone has a wonderful summer. I can hear the kids out in the neighborhood now, so I think they've already started to enjoy that, and we're looking forward to start next year. Thank you.
Mrs. Makika?
Like everyone else, I'm wishing Leslie continued success at my alma mater. So much success to you. Also to all the staff for giving 150% for this school year. We're looking forward to the start of next school year in some type of normal environment. To the board, have a great summer. See you in August.
I am saving Leslie to last, so I'll go give it to Mrs. Holman and then we'll turn the mic over to Mrs. Frisbee. You know, I am going to hold my goodbye for Mrs. Frisbee until the workshop in August. I'm going to enjoy her for some additional weeks, and so I'm not going to say goodbye to her just yet. I wanted to echo some of the sentiments that Mrs. Holman expressed during her report. I too am very proud of our students' resiliency, our parents' partnership, our teachers' tenacity, our staff's perseverance, and our administrators' administrators' determination and our board's trust in our decision-making this year. I really do wish everybody a wonderful break. Everyone deserved it. Mrs. Holman.
Certainly, I mentioned earlier in the meeting, it is bittersweet. It is, congratulations, Leslie. I too said the same thing. You know, you were just board approved yesterday, so I will not say goodbye to you yet. August, whatever the August workshop meeting is, certainly, we will insist that you be here so we can all celebrate in your company. And we certainly wish you well, but we're not saying bye yet.
Mrs. Frisbee.
Well, thank you for all the kind words this evening. Yep, you're not rid of me yet. I still have a lot of work to do this summer, you know, closing out the fiscal year and getting our audit done, and certainly, you know, making sure that my business office and staff and all the planning is ready to go for the start of the next school year. And so, yes, I will. Tonight is not my last meeting. I will see everybody all summer and through August. And really just from the bottom of my heart, thank you for all the kind words.
Board Chair, Mr. Rex. Mr. Rex for board sharing.
Yes, congratulations to all the seniors, and thank the staff for this year. We all know it's been tough. We appreciate it from every job that needs to be done here. Everyone was, went above and beyond the call. Thanks to Arts guys. The stadium looked great for graduation. Everything was set up. The rows were perfectly straight. It was very military looking. So thank you. It went off without a hitch. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say the very same thing. So just from a parent's perspective, it felt so Northwestern. The graduation did. The grounds art looked beautiful. The whole school campus continues to look beautiful. So thanks for that. It's really, I've lived here my whole life, but every single time I drive past campus, I feel very fortunate to live here and call Northwestern home. Graduation was so special. And I know that there was a lot of work put into that and a lot of last minutes, like, what do we do? What do we do? It felt so good. And I think that the kids felt celebrated. The parents felt so connected because you felt so close to the kids. I just thought it was a wonderful night. So thanks for all the special touches that you provided to us as board members and that we double as parents, 5 of us. Leslie, we will save this for August, but I'm truly thrilled for you. And Parkland is very, very lucky to gain someone as special as you. Thank you.
Elijah.
Yeah, a couple. I would echo some of what Rachel said as far as graduation. I had a chance to sit, right in the middle of the field, looking straight up towards the podium. It was a great day, and really appreciate the opportunity as a board member to be able to hand my second child her diploma on stage. It's always a special treat as a board member to be able to do that. So very much appreciate that luxury that we are granted as part of this board. So for that, I'm thankful. Art, yeah, your team did a great job. Mrs. Yadish, we always really appreciate her the work that she must put into and that the team puts into creating that speech at the end, where she really, it seems, does a great effort to try to recognize most of the students and all the memories that she's accumulated throughout the years that she's had many of those students. Special thanks to Zimmy. I know as athletic director, he wears multiple hats in this school. I don't think many people realize everything he does for this district and for this community. Frankly, I think he, it's a family unit to him, or as much as it's a job or a role. And he really was instrumental in helping that these kids, these seniors, put on that prom the day after graduation. And I know there's many kids that appreciate that opportunity. And it was a great event over here across the street. So again, I'm thankful for that. Thanks for the administration and staff this year. Quite a challenging year. Really looking forward to getting back to, quote unquote normal as we head into fall. And wouldn't want to miss Leslie in our, she has been a tremendous asset from a financial perspective. Her and I have gone back and forth many a times, and she just never fails to have the answer. And really, I think over time has saved this district, quite a bit of money, has helped us find ways to cut costs and drive grant revenue. So for that, we appreciate her. That's all.
Thank you. Mrs. Lister.
I agree with what everyone said. I've been incredibly impressed with this school district this year, especially every year, but especially this year, the resiliency, the culture that they communicated to their students when we all know it wasn't easy for them. I think that really helped the students have a great year and feel more comfortable with the environment, feel safe and protected. And we know a lot of work went into that. So thank you all. And agree, I don't know how you kept that thunder from getting too close to us and the lightning and the rain, but you did a great job just like you've always done. You work as a team and that's so evident. I think it was Art who said, maybe Mr. Zimmerman was, in the texting about the thunder is going to be here. And that's just a great example of how you all work together as a team. And you show that Tiger pride to all these students. And we are really fortunate to have all of you. And I do sincerely think that Leslie is going to be so missed, but that you will be really welcoming to a new team member and that they will be equally just as fortunate. So thank you all and have a great summer.
Thank you. Dr. York.
I told Mrs. Yadish in an email the day after graduation, I thought it was very cool for her to arrange the aerial special effects. and in particular, the rainbow was a really special touch at the end. So it's pretty powerful stuff.
On the after.
If I can grab a moment though, Mr. Delaker, as we finish up this very challenging year, I'd like to share a few words of recognition and appreciation from a school board member's perspective. First to our students, their parents, their families, and caregivers. We were challenged beyond anything that has ever been imagined this year. You made many adjustments, accommodations, and changes to your home lives that were necessary to make the best of a very bad situation. You redefined the expression, partners in education. As a grandparent, I had the occasion to spend some time lending support to a kindergarten and a third grade student for their online learning. I can only say I'm glad it was very brief. The year was certainly less than any of us would have wanted, but you were a large part of making it as successful as it could be. Thank you for the support you showed to the administration, teachers, and staff as they negotiated the many twists and turns that the pandemic threw at them. I'd also like to thank our parents for choosing Northwestern as their student school. In this day of choice, you didn't have to. Many of you are prior students, and your decision to entrust your students to the school district should not be taken for granted. You personally know the quality of education that you received, and the enrollment of your children is an endorsement in seeing that continued for future generations. In my career, I had the opportunity to experience many public schools. I know for certain that Northwestern provides a very high quality of academic challenge, and very importantly, it is in a safe and caring school environment. To our administration, teachers and staff, bravo. You rose to the occasion and overcame incredible obstacles to provide a continuing education in the most challenging of circumstances. As a former teacher and administrator, I have some idea of what you all do on a daily basis. However, reinventing learning in a virtual environment, the daunting decision, gut-wrenching decisions had to be made in an ever-changing situation, and the issues of safety for everyone involved are truly beyond my comprehension. I don't know how you did it. The performance was, in my judgment, extraordinary and at times absolutely courageous. You are truly frontline workers. You are COVID heroes. You deserve our gratitude. Finally, I hope everyone, students, families, and our staff will make sure to commit significant time this summer to personal renewal through relaxation, recreation, exercise, or through your own faith beliefs. Be gentle with yourself. It's been a very tough year. See you in September. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Mr. Hernandez.
Oh, what more can I add after all this?
Yeah, I
Without a lot of redundancy, but yes, thank you to all the staff and employees of the district up and down. Great job this year, fantastic. For those that were involved in the graduation, it was excellent, it was awesome. We'll probably set the new bar. We'll see what happens moving forward, but but that bar is pretty high. And I don't know that anybody would be disappointed to follow those in the years future. And like Todd said as well, thank you, Zimmy, for all the help and assistance in the prom as well. Kind of unspoken hero there. Many might not know of all of his involvement in that. It couldn't have been done without his help as well. So just thanks and enjoy the summer. And unfortunately, it'll be fast. The times go fast, but enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fatsinger.
I'd just like to thank Mrs. Yadish for another great graduation and her team, and the teachers and staff for a tough year and doing such a wonderful job. And Leslie, thank you. Not only did you explain the budget to us, but you taught us the budget. And you will be missed. You know you'll be missed. But congratulations, and I wish you the best.
Thank you, Joe. Well, this is an advantage of being last, I guess. There's certainly nothing I can add to what was said tonight by all you people's great comments and best wishes and thanks. This is a great community, and all of you make it that way. Thank you for being here. And with that, we'll move to meeting announcements, and we do have an executive session for personnel immediately following this meeting. We do not have a meeting in July, and we'll see you back in first Wednesday in August. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Rex.
Second.
And second by Mr. Weiser. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.